So it's no secret that the Halloween franchise has one of the most divided fan bases, since at 12 movies and counting, nobody is gonna have the exact same opinion on how all of the films should be ranked. But I think if there's one thing that we can and should all agree on as a horror community, it's that there's no greater evil out there to us than that of Rotten Tomatoes. Yes, the infamous movie review aggregation website populated by the skewed opinions of film critics who are notoriously anti-horror. So in this video, we're gonna take a look at Rotten Tomatoes' consensus on the entire Halloween franchise to not only see how they've scored each film individually, but also in which order they've ranked them, from worst to best. What is up, Scream Team? Zach Cherry here, and if you're as obsessed with horror movies as I am, you might want to consider hitting that subscribe button and turning on those bell notifications, setting them to all. That way, you can stay up to date with all my latest content. Just for shits and gigs, toss this video a thumbs up, and be sure to meet me in the comments down below to let me know how wrong you think Rotten Tomatoes is in their ranking of the Halloween franchise by letting me know how you would correctly rank them instead. Let's get into it. Not really a surprise to me, but I guess kind of a disappointment. In last place is Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers with a tomato score of 9%. However, if you take a look at the audience rating, that is 37%. So that's a huge difference there. Just looking at the critics' consensus here, Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers trades the simple, brutal effectiveness of the original for convoluted mysticism with disastrously dull results. Okay, they're not wrong in the convoluted mysticism part. Like, that is absolutely 100% true. I don't know if I necessarily agree that the results were disastrously dull. I think that it's still a pretty entertaining movie for as stupid and crazy as it is. Do I necessarily think that this is the worst movie of the franchise? No, absolutely not. I know this is not everyone's favorite, but I don't know if this is everyone's least favorite. There's definitely other movies that I would have expected to be below The Curse of Michael Myers, but even looking at that 9% versus 37% audience score, it seems like the fans don't agree with the critics on this. In 11th place is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now, obviously, I'm a huge fan of this movie. I know that it is bad, but I really love it in spite of that. You know, this is my guiltiest pleasure of all time. 12%, I don't really think that that is necessarily fair, especially in terms of, you know, what is coming after this. But again, this has the exact same audience score as The Curse of Michael Myers at 37%. Critics' consensus: Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers finds the series embracing crude slasher conventions with pedestrian scares, disposable characters, and aimless plotting. Again, I can't disagree with any of that. They're totally right on the money there, but still 12%. I would say that this maybe at the weakest deserves to be like 40%. I'm looking at this on a 100% scale. So if we're ranking this 1 to 10, that means that Curse of Michael Myers has less than 1 out of 10, and The Revenge of Michael Myers also has 1 out of 10, just over like 1 out of 10. Even like the worst horror movies I've seen, I mean, I don't think I've rated anything below a 3, because I know that movies that are worse than that, I'm just never gonna touch. This all goes to show that film critics in general just don't really understand the horror genre. They don't really have any point or basis of comparison. There's so many complexities and nuances to the horror genre, and they don't understand that because they're lumping all of these movies together. Like, for example, I'm gonna look up, let's see. Okay, here's a great example. Black Christmas 2019. This is probably like the worst horror movie I've seen in the recent years that I can recall seeing a really bad horror movie. But Rotten Tomatoes has scored this at a 39. So that's 39. You could fit 3 Halloween 5s into that score, and you can fit 4 Curse of Michael Myers. It just goes to show that these people have no idea what they're talking about. All right, here we go. This is what we came here for. In 10th place is Halloween Resurrection, and it's got 12%. So this is exactly the same as Halloween 5. This does have a much lower audience score at 25%. So at least I'm thankful that horror fans know what's up. The only thing this tired slasher flick may resurrect is nostalgia for when the genre was still fresh and scary. That's a really short blurb. I feel like there's so much else that could be said about this movie. Like that's the thing about Halloween Resurrection, that as bad as it does invite a lot of conversation, because there is so much that's bad about it that, I feel like you could go on for hours. But when they say resurrect nostalgia, like when I watch Halloween Resurrection, I don't even feel nostalgic for anything. I just feel nauseous, really, from all that freaking shaky camera, 360p resolution. That's terrible. They literally put no effort or thought into it. Like it's not even an actual script. They just went off of the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis had this contract where she said that she wanted to get killed off. She was only obligated to give them, I think, 10 seconds or something like that, and she ended up giving them 13 minutes. But even like in those 13 minutes, like how much screen time does she actually appear in that entire block of time, and how many lines does she actually have? So there's nothing really nostalgic about anything that's going on with her there. The rest of the movie was pretty much just a spec script that was turned into Halloween. Everything with the internet reality show, like that was just writers coming up with ideas. There's nothing nostalgic or original about this. This was basically just made for today's audience. And when I say today, obviously I mean 2002. But I don't know, most people that I talk to, or at least comment to me, do say that this is the worst of the franchise. So if you do think that it's better than 5 and 6, let me know. All right, huge jump in numbers here. Well, not huge, but significant compared to what we had before, because at 22%, and I guess in 9th place is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And this has the highest audience score yet with 44%. So a lot of people did like this a lot better. Again, this is another movie that I only ever hear really negative things about. So it's interesting that this does have a little bit higher of an audience score and a lot higher of a critic score. Zombie shows flashes of vision in the follow-up to his Halloween reboot, but they're smothered by mountains of gore and hackneyed brutal violence. Again, I agree with everything that they're saying here. I don't necessarily think that the mountains of gore and the brutal violence are what is holding this movie back from being better. I think it was just a little too different for what the Halloween franchise needed to be. In that regard, I could see why they might rate this one a little bit better, because they appreciate his artistic flair, I guess. In 8th place, not too far up from that, with a 28% score, is Halloween 2007, obviously Rob Zombie's again, with a much higher audience rating here at 59%. So this is the most popular movie out of everything so far. That's a 6% jump on the tomatometer and a 15% jump for audience score. Rob Zombie doesn't bring many new ideas to the table in Halloween, making it another bloody disappointment for fans of the franchise. I actually disagree with this consensus. I mean, I don't love this movie. I have it ranked pretty low myself because I'm not a fan of Rob Zombie, but to say that he doesn't bring many new ideas to the table is kind of an understatement, because the entire first half of the movie is a new idea. I don't think that it works, but you can't fault him for making the exact same movie that John Carpenter did. Like, every other remake that came out at the same time as Halloween's was pretty much just the same thing, and he has the distinction of doing his own thing. And actually, I respect him for that, if I had to respect him for anything. And even as far as saying it's a bloody disappointment for fans of the franchise, I wouldn't say that it is a disappointment in terms of the bloodiness, but maybe more so in terms of the suspense and atmosphere and mood and all that stuff. Okay, this one people are going to be really salty on, but what's interesting is that this is the first match I have with Rotten Tomatoes, because in 7th place we both had Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. And interestingly, this has 29%, so it has 1 percentage point higher than Rob Zombie's Halloween, but for an audience score, it has 52%. So the audience prefers Rob Zombie's Halloween by 7 percentage points. That's pretty crazy. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers may bring the series' masked killer back into the fold, but fails to offer the visceral scares and inventiveness of the original. I mean, I don't agree or disagree. I think that this movie is very middle of the road. This one does feel to me like the closest thing to the original, so I can understand why they would compare the two. I'm just shocked that not only are the critics rating this 29%, because I thought that this would be much higher, but also that audience only score this at 52%. So that means that at this point, Rob Zombie's Halloween is still the best movie according to the audience. I'm also not surprised that out of the 3 Thorn trilogy movies, that this is the most well-received. Like, that's pretty much expected. But I guess, yeah, it's just my shock is that we're still halfway through the franchise and we haven't gone above a 50% or even a 40 or a 30% for a Rotten Tomatoes score. Okay, this one cuts deep. We've got 31% for Halloween 2. However, we've got an audience score of 63%, so this is actually good. Like, you can see, like, the popcorn bag is full. So at this point, Halloween 2 is winning for audience and critics out of the 7 movies that we've gone through so far. Halloween 2 picks up where its predecessor left off and quickly wanders into a dead end that the franchise would spend decades struggling to find its way out of. Okay, I guess that's in regard to the brother-sister storyline, which, I mean, to be fair, like, it was done here first, but it really was Halloween 4 that kind of took it in that direction and really made it a family thing for Michael Myers, because, you know, Halloween 3, you know, that did its own thing, and, you know, they don't really mention that here, because obviously the franchise did try to do something different and people didn't respond positively to it. But realistically, does it really bother people that much that there's this plot twist where we find out that they're related? I mean, even if it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, does it ruin the entire movie for you? Honestly, I want to know. I don't think it was necessary. It just kind of came about from John Carpenter drinking too much while he was writing the script and not knowing what to do with the last act. The thing that this consensus neglects to mention is that at the time this was made, there was no plan to go on with an entire franchise of Michael Myers. John Carpenter did specifically write this to be the last movie. That's why he put this silly plot twist in, because he didn't think that it was going to go on for a 3 or a 4 or a 5. So I don't think it's a fair criticism to say that this wanders into a dead end. I think this wanders into a territory of generic slasher movies for sure. I think that it's still better than most of those generic slasher movies, but this entire consensus is just predicated on that one fact. Like, it's just talking about where the franchise goes from this point. They're not even talking about the movie. I think this deserves more credit. Like, the audience score, that's fine. I can respect 63%, but 31%, like, that's disappointing. All right, this is gonna piss some people off, but in 5th place, we've got Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and this has 41% for an audience score. So that's a full 10% over Halloween 2. It's still a rotten score, and if we look at the audience score, that's 27%. So again, that's about half of the audience score of Halloween 4, which was a 29% according to critics. So it just goes to show, like, that none of this makes any sense. It's a laudable deviation from series formula notwithstanding, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch offers paltry thrills and dubious plotting. Like, what do these people want? They've given this 10% more than Halloween 2, but say that it offers paltry thrills and dubious plotting. And again, like Halloween 2, this one also has like a huge separation between the audience score and the critics score. I am surprised that this one is ranked so much higher up than the other movies though. But I do appreciate that though. I just don't think that it's 41%. All right, 4th place, we've got Halloween Kills, and we still got 41%, so it's exactly the same as Season of the Witch. It's still a rotten score. we've got an audience score of 66%, so that's the highest so far. It's just a few percentage points above Halloween 2. Halloween Kills should satisfy fans in search of brute slasher thrills, but in terms of advancing the franchise, it's a bit less than the sum of its bloody parts. And then it's funny, the audience consensus is Halloween Kills doesn't do much to move the Michael Myers saga forward, but viewers looking for hardcore horror violence won't be disappointed. So basically they're saying the same thing, but they're separated by 25%. I don't think that Halloween Kills is a 41%. I would be more inclined to go more towards what the audience is saying. So I don't agree with the critics' score, but I do, again, agree with what they're saying. Like, I think that this is going to be satisfying for people who are, looking for more of the blood and slasher kills, but it's true. This movie doesn't really advance the franchise or even the trilogy, so I do agree with them there. All right, third place, Halloween H2O. Again, we're still rotten here. We've got 52%, but we have gotten over that 50% threshold. Audience score is 49%. That actually might be the closest that the audience and the critics have come to agreeing. It's odd that the critics do like this one a little bit more than the audience does, because when this one came out, it was really popular. Everyone loved H2O, and I think that is because it was very Scream-esque, and Scream was super popular at the time, and it didn't age as well as, say, Scream did, and that's why people probably look at it like it's not that great today. Halloween H2O is the best of the many sequels, yet still pales in comparison to the original Halloween. Okay, so obviously everything is gonna pale in comparison to the original Halloween. No critic or fan or anyone should go into any one of these sequels and use that as a point of reference to how you're gonna grade this movie. John Carpenter's Halloween was over 40 years ago. Like, there's never gonna be anything like that again. There's never gonna be anything in the franchise as good as that. There will be movies that people might enjoy more than it, but you can't go into every new Halloween expecting it to be as good as, if not better than, that movie, because that's an unrealistic expectation. Okay, huge leap here, and we've got a fresh tomato score here with 79% is Halloween, and the audience score is 70%. So again, that's pretty close, but let's see what the critics' consensus is saying. Halloween largely wipes the slate clean after decades of disappointing sequels, ignoring increasingly elaborate mythology in favor of basic, yet still effective ingredients. I can't say that I disagree with this consensus. I think that they're right about the ignoring of the elaborate mythology, but I wouldn't necessarily say that, the decisions made in 2018 were basic or effective, because they kind of went into their own little thing there that, did cause a lot more problems than they were wiping clean. I'm honestly not surprised that this is ranked second for Rotten Tomatoes. I could see the critics gravitating more towards this because it is more polished and looks better, and the fact that it did ignore the other sequels. But I'm questioning, are the critics saying this is good because it's good? And not to say that it's not good, but are they actually praising this movie? Or are they just giving it praise because it's negating the other movies that they think are not good? Oh, and surprise, surprise, first place is Halloween, obviously. 96%. That is a little bit higher than what the audience is giving it at 89%. Scary, suspenseful, and viscerally thrilling, Halloween set the standard for modern horror films. Pretty basic, that's what I expected they would say. And yeah, I agree with that. I'm very curious as to who this 4% is of critics who did not like this movie. I think that Halloween is a perfect movie. That's a 10 out of 10 for me, so I guess I would rate this 100%. I have no reason to deduct a single percentage point here or there, just giving it an arbitrary number, 98%, for example. This is 100% for me. But I still think that there's value in the other movies that I would never rate them as low as, the critics have here. If you're interested to see my video ranking this franchise, I just did that. I'll link it over here. I'm sure in the future I'll do more of these Rotten Tomato ranking analysis videos for other franchises, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, I've been Zach Cherry, and I'll be right back.